whole gist of this site was to try and figure out how to come out of the system, okay? And we're there. You want to talk about other stuff? Go set up your own site and talk about it over there, okay?
Right.
This is all about trying to get out of the system, trying to protect your assets, your property, and get you into the right perspective, which everybody has had a wrong perspective out here because they don't understand banking. Now, in the past, I've told you you need to have an estate EIN. Your fictional person is dead, but he is still a public employee. Okay? He's on the public payroll. We have to get him out of the public payroll and take him into the private. Then when he's operating in the private, he can no longer be employed by the public. He has to surrender that office, that public office, and all entitlements that he has and everything that are attached to him in the public world have to be terminated. You have to have a foreign grantor trust EIN. That is for your trust patents. Your certificate of live birth is a trust patent, a civilian trust patent. If you have selective service, which most men should have had when they registered, they should have a military trust patent. And then if you had service with a DD-214 or other honorable service discharge, you should have an additional entitlement in there to that military trust patent. But everybody in the military that has a selective service should have some funds in there because you basically gave 7 years of being obligated to defend the country. Now, the latest one is we have our trust, we have our estate, but we have to have some place to bank them. And you have to set up a private bank. And that's what I had Tom post the template of the SS4 and then also the online form example of what I did to file online to get a private bank identification as an individual banker. This will end up being a house of swaps and exchanges. But they will be also classified as just a second. Subsistence, okay? That's what we will be holding is our subsistence. And it's also a subsidy. When a nation does not join in direct war, it's called a subsidy. So, and we will be operating in a neutrality position because we're not going to join in the commercial war against the country. But, like I said, our Social Security person with that Social Security number, he is presently a public employee, even though he's dead. And we've established an estate EIN for him as a deceased person. But he's still being held in a public office. Now, when we turn around and we establish that he is now our private office holder, and he has taken on the private office responsibility of being our CFO, Chief Financial Officer of our bank, we resurrect him in the private. We killed him off in the public, but now we're transferring him into the private. Now they have to fully terminate all of his public employments. Very simple. This is what Jesus did. This is what Moses did. This is what Daniel did. It's all about banking. You move it into your house of swaps and exchanges. Banks use swaps. They don't buy anything. They swap something for something else. And as what we're doing is we're going to be swapping public debt for our public credits, or the assets that are out there. The other people on the other side of the fence, they want the public debt instruments. They want the Federal Reserve notes because they think that that's what real money is, because they don't know the truth. So let's give it to them. Let's swap it. Now, in a swap, there is no taxes. You're doing a just exchangement. And a just barter exchangement cannot be taxed. There is no profit. Taxes only come upon profit. People have been arguing the wrong thing in court about this income tax scenario. You have no income. You have subsidies that basically you're getting paid out of your fictional person to you, but you have no income. Income basically is the term that they used in the tariff tax of 1913. And it's another form to deprive and control the people, because the people weren't smart enough to understand how the system of banking operates. So now we have 3 EINs, and they're swapping / routing numbers. We use those as our swapping number. You take, like a property tax. They send you a bill. You turn around and you swap it back to them for the credits that are due to settle the services for that property tax. You can process it either through your bank routing number or your estate routing number. Back to them. They have an EIN number, so now it's routing that credits, that bill of credits, back to them. You want some funds? You're going to basically take your trust, your certificate of live birth. We will process it, and we will have to do some 1099-As in this process. We're going to process, like say, $100,000 against our certificate of live birth from our trust. So on the 1099-A, the transferring one would be the estate EIN. The receiving entity would be, like in my case, the Patrick Devine private bank, estate, and trust under my banking EIN number. Then we send that to either a state bank, commission, because I've been there, and basically they have said that they've seen these items, but I didn't have the right process 4 or 5 years ago when I went up to talk to them. You could also have it processed through a national bank, and they would be able to go directly to the Treasury fiscal agents in the Federal Reserve Bank to have those funds transferred to you, either if you have a account with the Treasury, either a Treasury Direct card or a Direct Express debit card. You could have them applied to that debit card. You notify the Treasury that the Treasury Direct or that Direct Express card is now property of your private bank. Then when you use the card, you're doing swaps or exchanges. You're not buying anything for a profit. You're not purchasing anything for a profit. You're swapping something for something else. That's barter. Non-taxable. You only have to pay taxes upon a profit to where you put no labor into it. Now, the usage of our collateral out here, that is collateral labor. Our collateral is doing labor or services for the commercial world. And that labor cannot be taxed. But you have to get into a banking scenario to do this. One of the court cases that basically Tom had on one stick that he sent to me was entitled Bank One versus the Commissioner of the Internal Revenue. And basically it's about 259 pages in length. But the key thing that I saw in there was swaps. They were doing swaps from one bank to another. That's how they get around paying income taxes. It's because they're calling these transfers swaps. And in the transfer, basically, when you're getting an exchangement of something for something else, you're not making any profit on it. But the end result was that basically down towards the end, the Supreme Court ruled about the swaps that told the IRS that they need to go in and do a little more investigation into the swaps to see if there was profits being made on those swaps. Because that's what they had to be taxing, was the profit, not the swaps themselves. See, there's a lot of stuff out here that basically people have looked at and they tried to use the thing, but they've never addressed the right words. Like I said all along, it's all in the words. Also, swap is used when you terminate one employment and go to another employee. You're swapping out. So we're going to swap our public office for our fictional person for his private office. And in the private, he can't hold a public office. Just like the president can't be the CFO of Midwest Bank while he's the president of the country. He can't hold a private office position and hold a public office position at the same time. They can't be the chairman of the board of another corporation while they're holding a public governmental office. And see, our fictional person right now is holding a public governmental employment office, even though he's dead. Therefore, all the assets that are held by the Social Security Administration, all the assets that are held under his title to the vehicle, title to the property, they have to be liquidated because they're a public office document. And if he's now a private office holder, they can't be held. Pretty simple. We'll put the notifications into the right places. In that letter that I sent to the chief judge, I should have addressed that a little more in detail. But we're there, okay? They've been using our assets, and I have total proof about the Social Security Administration out here, how they operate. When you apply for Social Security benefits, they turn around and they take your assets that you have on deposit and all accumulations from the usage of that as collateral out there, the deposits that have been put into that holding pattern or holding trust there, they've been using that. So when you apply for unemployment or disability, they turn around and write bonds for that amount of value out there and make the payment to you. But they're using that collateral to give you the payment, to give your substance back to you. It's non-taxable. It's a subsistence. It's not income. You have no income. You have subsistence or subsidies as the living, but you have no income. Income only derives from profit, to where you go out to Vegas and put $1 into the one-armed slot machine and win $1,000. You can subtract your dollars worth of labor of pulling that arm, so now you can subtract $2 from that. You're going to have to pay taxes on $998, because now that's income. But normally they give you a break on anything. If it's under $600, they won't tax you. Even at the horse races, the same scenario is held. And I know that for a fact because I've gambled at all places. So, that's pretty much the bottom line. You need to get this, those 3 EINs, and that's your 3 wise men that's called out in the Bible.
Wow. Yeah.
The gold, the frankincense, and the myrrh. And then we take our fictional person out of the public world and move him into the private as our CFO. We as the living are the CEO. We're sitting at the head of the table. We're the owner of this bank. But we just get up and we walk out and we go play golf, while our fictional person, the CFO, is handling all the affairs of our bank. But he's no longer a public employee. He is now a private employee. The two main documents that we will need to do is 1099As and 1099Cs. Like what I was addressing before. They're banking documents. Since he's no longer a public employee, he will not file a 1040 form. But if we have any income, profits in the endeavor, then we would be required to file a 1041 form for either the estate transfer, the bank transfer, or the trust transfer. And there's not going to be very many profits on any of that, because we're a non-profit, tax-exempt organization now. You're going to have to go to the state, Secretary of State's office, and get the tax exemption form. You apply for that and you get your tax exemption identification number. That you are now in the private out here. You would utilize that tax exemption number along with your private bank name and everything, trade name, to do your registry of your private vehicle, your private house or farm or whatever in the private. The bank owns it. You don't own anything, but you are the owner of the bank. Hidden in the background. So, that's pretty much the gist of it. You can get, for big ticket items, you basically fill out a 1099A, like you go and purchase when you buy, do a swap, not buy, you swap public debt instruments over to buy, or to get that vehicle, to swap for that vehicle, you do a 1099A over to them. Now it's showing that they have accumulated that public debt. Now, they have to declare whether that is fully the amount that cost all the labor and everything going into that vehicle, or whether there is a profit of what they just accumulated out of it. You don't have to worry about that, because you just did a swap, and there was no taxes on a swap. But on their accumulation, on the other side, they may have to pay taxes now, because there was a profit built into that automobile. But the profit was on their side of the ledger, not on our side. You would also give them a tax exemption document, which most states also have, along with the form that you apply to get your tax exemption ID number. There's also, with the IRS, there's a tax exemption commissioner. Back in August of 2010, I sent him a tax exemption request, but basically how I had it filled out was wrong. Okay? But now when we come in, that this public person can no longer operate in the public because he is now privately employed, and he can't hold two offices. He can either be in the public or it can be in the private, but he can't be in both. And that is founded well into all the documents out here about government offices. What's good for the gooses is good for the gander. And we're the ganders. They're the gooses out there running around with all their goose shit. But they've got you running around like a baby still in diapers, and you're carrying a load of shit in your diapers, dragging it around behind you. You need to grow up and put on the right clothes and operate the way the big boys do. The bankers. Their system is not that damn complicated because most of them are complete babbling idiots. I've told you before, just take a look at the damn Bush family. They were a banker's family. Complete idiots, in my opinion. But they knew some of the tricks of the trade, and that's all they were. They were tricksters. They were also bank robbers. But that's another story we don't need to go into here because that's outside the scope of this endeavor. So I hope this makes a little more sense to you people about why we're doing what we're doing and what needs to be done. I have 6 or 7 sticks that people sent to me to try and download. I've been holding off trying to get these audios and some of these documents pulled together before I sent them out. But I hope that you haven't held up in going on with what we need to have here to get those EIN numbers. Now the group, there's people on the group that have done both online filings for the Foreign Grantor Trust and for the estate EINs. Use the chat group on the site or the Skype group that Tom has set up to ask your questions about some of the people that did it that way. I didn't get either one of my estate or trust EINs that way. In fact, the IRS was the one that went and got them for me because I was too damn squeaky and they wanted to grease the wheel a little and sort of quiet me down. But this final one of getting this private bank routing number, I put the template for the filing, the hard copy filing out there of the SS4, and then also the template of what I did online. Now make sure you go into irs.gov and do it online. You're going to have to do it between certain hours during the week. You can't do it on the weekend. They won't take it. Stay away from those other sites out there, and they'll wait until you get to the very end and then say, oh, by the way, you need to have a debit card to process this thing anything further. You're on the wrong site. You're not on the IRS government site.
Yeah,
you don't need to pay to get this EIN number.
They want something like $297.
I don't care what they want.
Yeah.
You don't have to pay for it.
Sure. You can identify most of those is because they say clearly, most of them say clearly that they're ads. Anything that says
just go into irs.gov, okay?
irs.gov.
And you'll be okay.
Right.
And then basically that tax exemption, IRS Commissioner tax exemption. He is located at 1111 Constitution Avenue, Northwest. He was located in room 684. Washington, D.C., zip code 20224-0002. The IRS Commissioner, I think, is 0001, and I don't know what his room number is, but he's located in the same building. So this is the number 2 guy, the Tax Exemption Commissioner. Initially, back in 2010, his name was Stephen T. Miller. I don't know what his name is now. But you can send notification that basically to him that your Social Security person is no longer a public employee. Therefore, the Social Security Administration can no longer be utilizing his assets in the public. He has quit that job. He has swapped it out for a private job. Now all entitlements that he held while he was in a public office have to go with him when he leaves that office. It's all about employment here. It's all about banking. And then it's all about doing swaps and exchange, bartering. But if you constantly want to go out there and try and have a profit on something, okay, to where you haven't put your labor into it, then you're going to have to pay taxes upon that. And see, subsidies are given to a nation that is not at war. And as long as we stay in a condition of neutrality, we have our subsidies that will be given to us to stay out of the damn war and remain neutral. And subsidies are not taxed, because it's when one nation gives to another nation And that other nation can't tax you if you're a separate neutrality nation. Sometimes in the exchangement, you get an additional amount of money given to you to make up the compensation for the exchange. That is called boot, B-O-O-T. Boot, sometimes paid by one of the parties to a trade or exchange to the other. You can carry that a little farther and basically go into where it's booty of war. Booty. You have no capital gain. Capital gain does not accrue from the mere receipt of property or money which one is obligated to return or repay to the rightful owner. So there is no capital gain. We've used the word asset quite a bit, probably in a lot of wrong usages of it. Asset has more than one definition. We should really be using a swap, a trade or exchange of property. That more or less clarifies what our assets are. The return to capital, rather than earnings from labor performed or services rendered, is what a profit is. It's a return to capital, but it's earnings from labor performed or services rendered, and that's what our collateral is doing out here. They're using our collateral, and it is rendering services to them. That is not taxed. Because the service, the return that we're getting for the services rendered is under the 1% usage fees. And see, in some cases, they were originally writing 10 bonds out here on a 3-year cycle. To give us the compensation, but they've increased that up to 35 times the amount to try and give us our monthly substance or subsidy, like for retirement in Social Security. These guys do not stop when they start something. I applied for Social Security about well over 4 years ago. I stopped it after 2 months because I sort of knew what their game was, but I didn't know the whole game that they were going to play. The game that they play is once you start something, it don't stop. So basically, even though I stopped receiving the monthly payments, those monthly payments, they continued to write the bonds, and the payments went into another special fund account being held there by the Social Security Administration. So roughly, I have about 40 months of accumulation of those retirement checks that are sitting there. And I found that out from the Social Security Administration last Wednesday, or last Thursday, I guess it was. Whatever. Thursday. And they're going to send them all to me. I don't know when. Supposedly within the next 10 days. But that just helped me understand and see some of these different banking scenarios that they're operating with. See, I've walked the walk, so I can talk the talk, because I've done everything out here. From gambling to trading commodities to banking. Pretty much they don't want to do any banking with me at the public banks anymore. But basically now I know how to come back in against them in the private, as a private banker. They knew I was getting damn close. That's why they didn't want to have me in there involved in their public banking system any longer, because they knew I was getting damn close to the private banking understanding. City policeman in a city police vehicle goes outside his jurisdiction, goes speeding down the highway in a different county, right in front of a highway patrolman. Does the highway patrolman pull him over?
Probably not.
The answer is no. Because that vehicle is a private corporation. The cop, the police officer, is a private employee of a private corporation. Even though he's basically in a government, supposed government position. He is really operating, the police department is a private corporation. Private/public corporation. He has a state license. He has a state identification. He can't be taxed. All traffic tickets are taxing instruments. The only thing that he could ever be charged with is if he went out and did harm to somebody. And then you've got to approach it in the right way when you go after them. And that's why half the time they get off, because people don't approach them in the right way, just like they didn't go after Kennedy in the right way at Chappaquiddick. They didn't go after the corporation. They went after the individual. But in some cases, the individual is totally protected because he doesn't have anything. It's all under the corporate employee. So now when you get your tax exemption ID from the state, you have your private bank system set up here. Now you go and get a private tax exempt ID and a private tax license plate on your vehicle. The highway patrolman that you just went speeding by can't do a damn thing about it because that traffic ticket is a taxing instrument. And they can't tax you. Because they don't have the authority to tax you. They can only tax a public corporation, a public employee. I hope this makes a lot more sense to you people in understanding what's going on here. There is no statute upon fraud, especially in banking. That you have to get your situation first straightened out as you are a private banker, and then you turn around and come back in against them. Under your estate EIN in the process, and your private bank and your tax exemption. Okay, it's open for discussion now.
I have a question, Patrick. If you have to go back, say I just had to go and get a job, what should I use as my SSN number? Do we still use our old SSN number?
You're going to be using your SSN number, but you have to get this other stuff out of the picture. And basically, if you get this other stuff out of the picture, why do you need to go work for somebody else?
Well, I wouldn't work for anyone else, and that's what I'm working on. I've been working on it, but, I can't be out in the streets, so I'm still
How old
working.
are you?
Pardon?
How old are you?
I'm 57.
Okay. Do you have your estate EIN?
Do I have my estate EIN? Yes.
Do you have your foreign grantor trust EIN?
No, I don't have that yet.
Okay, you need to get that tomorrow morning. You need to then turn around and get your banker's EIN, your individual banker's EIN.
Okay, because I thought that, you had said that when we were doing the self-executing judgment, you said we'd need that then because I didn't have my foreign grantor trust.
Yes, you need to have your foreign grantor trust now to basically to have your bank scenario totally set up and ready to go.
Okay.
Then you can turn around and take your certificate of live birth and do a transfer from the trust into your private bank. And basically, if you have, and you're going to have to go down to your commercial bank and set up a private bank account.
Okay.
Under your banker's EIN number.
And the EIN number is the one that you get from the state?
No, the EINs you get from the IRS. Your private bankers, your individual bankers' EIN number for your name, private bank, estate, and trust.
Oh, okay. Well, I haven't had access to the computer, so I haven't been able to go on your website. I don't have internet.
Okay, you're going to have to get access to the computer somewhere. Go down to the library or something and get on there. And you may have to do one for the estate tomorrow and one for the bank or for the trust tomorrow, and then for the bank the next day. But before you go down there, talk to the people on the group of what they did going into the IRS.gov to get that foreign grantor trust EIN number.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I know how to get that one.
Yes, Patrick.
But I didn't know how to get the one for the banking from the IRS.
Okay,
EIN number.
that's online there too. You can download those forms or those documents. I had Tom post them up onto the group site.
Okay. Yes, Patrick.
If you sent me one of those sticks, I will try and have those on, and I'm going to try and have that pulled together tonight and send those all out tomorrow.
Okay, Patrick, that template you had for the banker's EIN, it only needs 2 lines changed for the foreign grantors trust.
You can sort of modify that and put that up, say that this is a template then for foreign grantors trust.
Okay.
For doing online filing then, Tom.
I will do that, okay.
Okay. And then see, once you get that, and then you go to your state and get your tax exemption ID from the Secretary of State. So I think most of them are at the Secretary of State's office for your private bank, estate, and trust. And see, you're not going to be operating for profit. You're a non-profit organization, tax exempt. You will notify the IRS, this IRS commissioner, and you'll notify the Secretary of State and request your state tax exemption so that you don't have to pay sales tax, or you get your sales tax back at the end of the year.
So
you'll also then have that available to you when you turn around and take your public person with under his Social Security number out of the public realm and put him over into the private realm using the same Social Security number. Okay? Does that answer most of your questions on that?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
All right, Pat.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. I want to ask you something now. When you switch over, it was something that you mentioned about with the banking. You would use the bank account number. I mean the routing number for the bank.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? You use
yes.
the
bank account number goes down at the very bottom of the 1099-A. But when you're doing like a transfer, a swap of one of those certificates of live birth for the public debt that is owed to you using a 1099-A and your certificate of live birth, the receiver up at the top will be your private bank with his EIN number, and then the other one will be down below, will be your foreign grantor trust with his EIN number. And then you will send that to the banking commission for the state, or you could possibly take it into a national bank and have them process it for you and have the funds deposited into, if you set up a private bank account with that bank, you can have them process those funds directly into that private bank account. With Bank America, with Bank One, whatever. Mm-hmm. That you would do a restricted endorsement on the back of that certificate of live birth and have your 1099-A also to go along with it.
Yeah.
You would send the one copy, the red copy, into the IRS. You would retain whichever copy, and then the other copy would go along with the instrument as it goes through the system. And you're just doing a swapping out. So there is no taxes on it. Okay? Any other questions? Think of this strictly as banking, okay? You claim that you know banking, and basically you've had checking accounts and you've had savings accounts all your life, but did you really understand banking? No, I'm sorry to say you didn't.
Right.
And that's why the bankers were able to take advantage of you. What's the old saying? For lack of knowledge, my people are slaves. Not quite that phraseology.
My people are destroyed.
They suffer from a lack of knowledge.
No, my people. It's Hosea 4:6. It's my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge.
Yeah.
They suffer.
Well, slavery destroys you, and basically suffering destroys you, and basically it just wears you down.
And it
however
also
you want to look at it. I like the word slave.
It also says because they reject knowledge, too.
Yeah. And it's all in the words. See, this latest word, swap, is very instrumental in this whole process because that's the word that the banks use. And I had to look it up in a Supreme Court case and see that and say, holy shit, that's what they're doing. They're doing swaps. We're out here trying to claim we're purchasing something. No, we're just swapping something. Public debt for that automobile.
Hey, Patrick. I was this past week, I was working with a friend, and she was able to discharge a $70,000 student loan debt using the 1099-A. So, like you say, the swap. That's exactly what happened, and she received a receipt for it.
Yeah. But she'll stand a lot better chance, okay, and see, in some cases, they knew we were damn close, and some people have gotten resolved, and I know that I've gotten hospital bills set off, that I never really got the proof of it.
Yes, sir.
They just never came after me any further. Traffic tickets the same way. I've done more shit on those damn traffic tickets that I had. And but they're making a killing off the damn appearance bonds that I am still owed. And I will get those appearance bonds eventually.
I got a document from this group that I checked out, how to set up a trust, and filed 1041, and it spoke about getting a document from the Social Security Administration for I think it's the annual form, for them to tell us how much our account made, so we could try to recoup those funds. Do you still agree with that tactic?
I don't agree with setting up any trust.
Okay.
Okay? I've said that trusts are bad news. You set a trust up, and see, now if you are a private bank, they can't touch a private enterprise, especially a private bank. But they can go after a private trust out here because they're not fully protected. They're still just a trust. They're not fully in the right scenario. We have trust patents out here, but we have to move the stuff that's being held in trust under our employees, our public employees' accounts, out of the trust world into our private banking world. Even though I use the word estate and trust in my bank name, it's not really a trust. The bank does not have a trust per se. The two trusts are held with the United States of America Patent Office as trust patents. And that's not necessarily a trust, the way everybody uses the word trust. Okay, there's a big difference there. It's a patent, but it's a trust patent. And it's your entitlements. Okay?
Okay.
Hopefully that explained it a little clearer.
No, I'm with you.
Okay.
Hey, I don't want them to come after my assets, you know. I want to do it the right way.
Yeah. You want to come after your subsidies and your subsistences or entitlements. Those are basically our assets or our property, our private property. And see, the Constitution protects private property.
Yes, it does. I'm reading that state
Constitution. Private assets
man.
in there. It said private property, and basically that's your liberties.
Yeah, that state Constitution is a beautiful thing. It says it all over it. Private property.
Any other questions?
Thanks, Patrick.
Okay, you're welcome.
Patrick, I have a question.
Okay.
Would you advise purchasing a car with your 98 number?
No, I would get the assets moved out into your private bank. I would get the private bank first, because you're not going to be purchasing the car. Your bank is going to be purchasing the car or swapping debt paper out for that car.
Okay.
It's a bank swap.
Okay.
See, then you can protect the car.
Okay.
They can't seize that car any longer. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you need to have your bank set up first. Then you would basically do the swap. When you go down to get the car, you have the funds transferred to your private bank account, even though you may have one sitting over at a commercial bank, if they'll let you do that. Or you turn around and if you have a direct express or a direct card, you would have the funds processed onto those two cards. But if you contact the Treasury Department and you want to say that your Social Security person is no longer an employee of the government, the Direct Express and the Treasury Direct cards might be replaced with a totally private banking card. More than likely, a black card.
Okay.
Okay. And see, that's one of the other things I've got to do is, even though I'm going to get all this back checks, that basically retirement checks out of Social Security, all in one lump sum here. I'm going to try and get those things out of there as quick as possible, because see, they're all still being held under my Direct Express card by a public employee, and they can try and come after that as quick as it gets put into that account. So you get your assets out of any public account and put them into your back pocket as quick as possible. And then you get into the process of getting this public employee, swapping him out as a public employee to make him a private employee as your CFO of your bank. You can even make him your bank president, because you as the living are going to be the CFO, and you're going to go out on the golf course and play golf all day or whatever. Or go down to Fort Lauderdale and drink margaritas. What the hell is that damn saying? Key Biscayne or something? I mean, yeah. You just sit back and you let all the other take care of your banking system.
Patrick?
Yeah.
You keep saying using the Direct Express
You guys speak up
card.
a little.
You talk about using the Direct Express card to transfer your funds into. Is that the same like a Discover card or a Visa card?
No, it's a Treasury issued card, and basically, in most cases, it's issued out along with by the Social Security Administration with the retirement or the Social Security payments being placed upon that. Now, if you have veterans subsistence, and the VA is another insurance company, just like the Social Security Administration is. It's a public insurance corporation, and the VA can transfer funds into a Treasury Direct card also. But if you're not of the age of retirement, you can get a Treasury Direct card, not a Direct Express, but a Treasury Direct card, until you terminate your public employee and move him over into the private. But as soon as you get him transferred over into the private, now you can also request from the Treasury a private debit card from the Treasury. To put your assets that you transfer out from your certificate of live birth into that Treasury card. But it would be a special debit card. But you need to get certain things done in the proper stage and sequence, and then basically then you can go up to the next level and continue the processing out of the system. Unreasonable search and seizure. Do the local Walmart policemen have the right of unreasonable search and seizure? No. Can they confiscate your vehicle? No. That is unreasonable. That is taking your property. And that is unreasonable seizure. When they have taken your property, if you cause no harm, that is totally unreasonable. But see, they try and get around that is because they're claiming that your public person is the owner of that vehicle, and your public person owes a tax, and they are now a criminal. They are a tax dodger, so they're a criminal, and they're going to seize that property because the property is under the name of the public employee, not in your name. You have to know how their game is played. Then you can start finding your ways to combat their game. You come in as the executor. You're the chief executive officer over your public and private individuals. And if you have them under an estate, you can come in and use your estate EIN along with the traffic tickets and order the settlement of those items by doing a swap of that, because they've written bonds and you're swapping that public debt that is owed to you in the private back to them in the public. All taxes are owed to the private in this country. We the people. So we give the taxes back to them to set off, to settle the account. Then you would use your estate EIN number in the process under a special restrictive endorsement back to them. To the barristers or whatever they're called, baroners or whatever. And see, that's what all these bar attorneys, they're basically getting you into an argument to argue the wrong situation and use the wrong words in the process. Okay, any other questions?
I didn't have a question, Patrick, but I really like where you're going here, because I've been wondering, concerned, how do we deal with things so once we're out? And you've begun teaching us that. That's great. Thank you.
You have to know how to operate as a banker.
Yes.
And see, you've been doing banking all your life, okay? Ever since you opened up your first account, savings account at the post office or whatever, or with a commercial bank. So just think about the transactions that you had, and then start learning some of the banking terms that they've hidden away.
Right. And there's different ways that the transactions can be looked at.
Yeah.
Especially the swap idea.
Well, it's not an idea. It's a fact.
Okay. Swap concept.
Yeah, and swaps go way back to the 1500s or better. But really further back than that. But if you go out and get it, and you're not going to find swap in Black's dictionary or Bouvier's. You'll find a little statement in Ballantyne's about it, but if you go into possibly Webster's, or I know Oxford Universal Dictionary, 1933, has a very good definition and a more broad definition of swap in it, because it also covers employment. So we're doing a swap of public employment for private employment of our fictional person using the same number. Because we've been told that that Social Security number can't go away. So we're not going to take it away. We'll use it.
Yep.
But we'll use it in the private.
Neat.
Any other questions out here? Come on,
That's the same
I should have blown your guys' mind completely wide open. You guys ought to have more questions you can shake a stick at.
Yeah, so that's the same thing as changing the status of the social, correct?
Yes.
Yep. And I actually saw that law in their code that you can change the status.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And just like basically a senator can't be as a chairman of a board or a board member. Hillary Clinton had to give up all of her private corporation board member positions when she took on being the Secretary of the State.
Changing status.
Yes. Because she went into the public world, so now she could no longer, as a fictional person, could no longer hold those other private offices.
Wow.
Now, when she terminated her public office, then she could turn around and become a board member and get kickbacks and everything else on these boards out here. I mean, it's a shell game. See how the big boys play. Take your diapers and that pile of shit you're carrying around with you and get rid of it. And put on big boy clothes for a change.
Hey, Patrick, have you seen the movie Jupiter Ascending yet?
No.
They go into this whole process. So I just want to see if you could check that out and, like, if you can come back and give us some feedback on what you see, because, I mean, they go into the estate, they go to the IRS, but this is supposed to be like a science fiction type of movie, but they go all the way in. So I just wanted to get your perspective on that movie. It just came out.
Well, basically, I don't think I really need to give you any further perspective on it. Basically, if it's going along with what I'm talking about, it's right on the money.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Because everything that we're doing right now, we're finding out is right on the money.
And they put it right in our faces. I mean, they do not care.
Yeah, but when you start coming in the right capacities, basically you're going to start getting the results that we've been trying to look for all along. See, it even shocked the shit out of me when I called up the other day, and basically I called up originally about 2 weeks ago to try and get on the Plan B of Medicare. Well, basically you have to pay 3 months and then get for 3 months, and then you get about 2 years of service out of Plan B in Medicare. Well, I didn't pay that when they requested it from me at that point in time. So basically, I called up and so I said, well, shit, I don't remember ever getting the notice on that. So basically, the Medicare person turned around and contacted the Social Security person down here at my local regional office. She turned around and hand wrote a request form for me to get reinstated, and I'd already called them up about 2 months ago to try and get reinstated, but I hadn't heard anything from them. But when the Medicare came in and said trying to get my stuff for me, then she acted, and she hand wrote this request out. All I had to do was sign it and send it back to her. Well, that was over about a week and a half ago. So when I called her up, she said, well, she was going to call me that afternoon anyway, but I don't know whether she was or not, so it's a good thing I did call. But then she said in the process and I said, well, I have a Direct Express card, and I just got a new one here about 3 months ago. Well, she wasn't sure. She said the old Direct Express card information is in the system, but the new Direct Express card may or may not be in the system, so she's going to have to go check with one of her senior persons because there was a pretty large amount of money that was going to be placed in that account. Didn't tell me how much it was. So she came back on the line and said, hey, yeah, it should be okay. And see, I already knew that it was going to be okay because they transferred 30 cents out of my other Direct Express card over onto this new Direct Express card. So I've got a total balance of 30 cents on it. So, and basically then earlier in the day, I was up at the VA and found out that basically I get travel pay from them, and they would deposit directly into this Treasury Direct, or this, not Treasury Direct, Direct Express card here. So I knew basically the VA is operating as another subsidiary of the Social Security Administration, because the Social Security Administration is the one that basically is working with the Treasury to issue that Direct Express card. So anyway, she came back on the line, told me that, yeah, it should be all okay. I said, okay, now, before you left me, you said that this was a massive amount of money. What are we talking about here? Well, what she was talking about was the 40 months that basically they'd been utilizing, still pulling out, that they were holding in a special fund over to the side. They were getting their profits off of that, and they wouldn't stop getting their profits. If they had a request, they were going to get their profits one way or another. So from the bonds they were writing at, say, 5% interest, and I was getting a return of about 1% or less, they were making 4% profit off of that whole time frame. That's the game that they play. Now, when we terminate this person in the public realm, they will no longer be able to write these public bonds against our assets, because our assets or our collateral will no longer be able to be used by them, because it's now private collateral, and it has to be returned to us along when we move our public employee out of his public office into the private. All his entitlements have to go with him at the same time. You guys follow all that?
Yep.
Sort of.
Yeah, well, I heard that.
But we won't be able to be making bonds against our assets like they do.
No, we're not going to bond our assets.
Right.
We'll have our subsidies and subsidies and our entitlements. Why do we need to write bonds and place it into servitude, bondage?
Right.
Patrick,
Okay, any other questions?
Yes, I forgot to ask you, how do we get this Direct Express card? And you said something about the Social Security issues of the card?
Yes, that's normally only when you're either getting disability or you're getting you're on retirement. Otherwise, you would probably try and get the Treasury Direct card.
Oh. So, well, I'm on retirement, but I have not received a Direct Express card, so I have to
go
ask
down
for
to your
that?
Social Security Administration and ask for it.
Okay.
Actually, the way I got mine, you can go to Direct Express online. They actually had a telephone number, so I just called the telephone number and arranged for it.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and then basically as soon as you get it in there, and then you can turn around and go down to the ATM machine and basically pull it all out in one shot.
Right.
If your thing is not too major, okay, get it out in cash, all in one shot. Then you deal in cash.
That's what
that way, now it's no longer being held in that public bank account to where they can turn around, and if the IRS comes in and says, hey, you owe us some taxes, and they put a freeze on that bank account, there's nothing in there to freeze.
Right.
Hey, Patrick.
Yeah.
The same way that we are able to change the status for the social in its public capacity and move it into the private, shouldn't we be able to do the same thing with our bank accounts, moving them from the public to the private, being as though we're the owners of those accounts?
If you're dealing with a commercial bank, you just set up a private, but you put it in your bank's name, not in your name.
Yep. Okay.
It's just like another corporation goes down and opens up a bank account at the commercial bank. See what I'm talking about?
Yep. Yeah,
okay.
and because I'm thinking like, okay, past closed accounts, I still own those accounts. Those are still in that name. So when I change that status and I'm still the owner of those accounts, those accounts go into the private.
Yes, basically you would have to notify basically the banking commission or whatever that those any assets that are held in those accounts need to be brought forward, and that would be one of the things that when you go after your stuff that U.S. Marshals or somebody may have to go and seize those items.
All right.
Right,
or the tax man.
We would be closing down those accounts and putting them into the private bank's account. Right?
Yes, you'll be swapping them out to bring them into the private.
Oh, okay.
Because your public employee is no longer a public employee. He is now a private employee, and all his entitlements in the public world have to be brought out into the private.
And he's the one those accounts belong to right now.
Yes, they're all in his name. They're not in your name. You're not the owner of any of those. But you are the owner of that employee.
Right.
See, that's where everybody's been getting mixed up on this process. They keep thinking that we're the one that has the Social Security number. No, there's no damn Social Security number stenciled on my ass. That on my fictional person there is.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, call tonight, Tom. We'll wrap it up here.
Thank you very much, Patrick. A lot
Okay.
to think about here. This is a good call to go listen to several times.
Yep.
yes, you're going to have to listen to this several times so you get a handle on how this basically, because I put a lot of information out there.
Oh, yeah.
And you need to have a full understanding of all this information.
Yeah, we each need to make our own private notes off this call.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Patrick.
Okay, you guys take care. Good night.
You too.